Wanna cause no problems. I just wanna live my life, but I keep on hearing about nonsense. Me and my dons ain't mobsters, but you know when you see imposters, we know how to read them faces, same way you know how to read them comments. If you wanna talk, let's talk, but around here, make sure you walk and your talk is constant.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Death to Vanilla podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Burkhart, and my co-host,
Rylan Trader.
We are going to challenge you on this podcast with some ideas that we have, some things that we've seen to courageously create, boldly innovate, and experiment so that you can get better than normal results by doing what everyone else is either too scared or not creative enough to do. And so on today's podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about authenticity. We're going to talk about titles and thumbnails and how those can work together to provide a hook and something exciting and something connective for the people who are your audience. So I'll pass it to you, Rylan. Talk to us a little bit about authenticity.
Yeah, so we really wanted to cover how you can inject a little bit of your personality and a little bit of your brand into some of your social media videos. And not to brag, but I think we do this pretty well. I think there's a couple of videos where we're just showing our faces, right? Like maybe it's like a 10-second video. I think one thing that I posted not so long ago was about it was a video of me working, and it was like the soundtrack playing in my head when I'm working. I think I got a couple thousand views. And it was a trending audio, it was timely, it was relatable, and it showed our face, right? Like it wasn't some random picture that we had taken or whatever. It was a real-time video. It wasn't super high quality. It was just happening in the moment, and we just shared it. It was simple, and you know what? People engaged with it. They related to it. They were like, "Oh yeah, like totally the same," because it was a normal video. It wasn't necessarily something that was super crazy, but it also showed who we were as a company. It showed our brand. It showed our personality. It showed that we were kind of fun, and it also showed that we were professional and business-like because we had a pretty cool setup, which was nice. But yeah, sometimes you have to. It's kind of just developing that personality throughout multiple videos while also like incorporating those few like businessy aspects of it, because you really want to develop your brand in a way that people feel comfortable around it, right? You don't want to be that guy at the party that shows up and like all the girls run away from because they don't want to get hugged by him, right? You go up and you fist bump people, right? You high five them because it's a casual relationship that develops over time.
Yes, that's amazing. Yeah, I think that's gold right there. You need to like tell to the people in the back of the room, right?
Yeah.
And you know, because like the thing that I always explain it to people is like, if some rando came up to you and said like, "Hey, I need to get to work. Can I borrow your keys?" You'd be like, "Get away from me." But if your best friend came up to you and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna be late for work. Can I borrow your car?" Like, chances are you would. Chances are you would do anything required to help your best friend get to work. And it's because there's trust and there's a relationship there. Even though it's the same exact action, the relationship you have with the person is different. And so to your point exactly, like your relationship that you build with people by sharing a little bit of yourself is like going to build that trust that people have with you. Now, granted, it's one-sided trust because like you don't know them, right? But like they're getting to know you. But I mean, that's the whole thing. Like you're trying to get them to do business with you, not the other way around. So for them to be able to for you to be able to show off a portion of your personality is going to invite those people to be a part of it. And like you had said in a previous episode, like not everyone's going to be for you.
Yeah.
So like in showing your personality, you may lose some people, but the people who are attracted to you are going to be even more so because they're really going to connect with you, in a loyal fan base, I hate to say it, is the most profitable.
Yeah.
It's just the truth.
What are you really can't get everyone, right? I think that's something, especially right now, like I'm currently in college, fun fact about me. And something you have to learn is that not everyone is going to be for you, right? Not everyone's going to like you no matter how much you want them to. They're just not. Like not everyone's going to like you no matter how nice you are, no matter how amazing you are. Not everyone's going to like you. Yeah. And it's coming to terms with that and being like, okay, like some things don't work out, and then it's moving on and developing your personality for people who do like you, right? Or maybe sometimes like if nobody likes you, maybe it's you. It's not us, it's you.
Maybe the authenticity you think you have is actually...
Maybe you're being too authentic.
Right. We do all know oversharers.
Yes. It's a good middle ground, right?
Well, and something that we didn't talk about before the episode, but is, you know, banging around in my head right now when it comes to authenticity is I think people, to your point on oversharing, I think some people either can overshare or they don't feel like they're being authentic if they don't share about X, Y, or Z. And I think the thing to realize is like the digital landscape of being on social media is no real difference than in person. And what I say is like, okay, well, are you really this, like when you went to work in an office, seated in a seat next to someone else, were you really the same person, acted the same way, said all the same things, said all the same stories, said all the same words as you at Friday night at the club?
Yeah.
Probably not. But are you being inauthentic at work? Are you being inauthentic at the club? Or are people just seeing an authentic but very specific portion of you, right? And I think that's the thing to realize is like there are all kinds of people in our life that know us for different things or in different ways, whether it was different seasons in our life or different settings that we're in, a professional environment, a casual environment, family vacation, you know, on stage. Like it's all going to have a different version of you. And I think people need to get comfortable with the idea that like authenticity on social media, you get to decide which parts of you to share. And it doesn't have to be all of them for that to be authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of relating back to that, one funny story I think I can tell is, so my sister, I'm not going to say her name, but she just recently got into like a corporate job, right? Like she's business casual every day, has to wear certain stuff. She has this like businessy voice where she like, I'll hear her take a work call and I'm like, who is this girl?
A business voice.
I know. We'll go from singing like T-Pain in the car and then she's like, oh wait. And then she's like, hello, how are you doing today? And I'm like, who are you? Who is this woman sitting next to me? So it's the same with your social media though, right? Like you don't, just because you're not posting about it doesn't make you inauthentic. It's showing what's relating to your brand, right? Like it's not, you're not oversharing. You're not making people uncomfortable, right? Like if, say you're in a conversation, you know, you're in those conversations where you're like, I could really be done with this conversation right now, and I did not need to know a lot of that stuff about you.
Yes.
It's that, right? Like you don't want to make people uncomfortable. You don't want to overshare. And sometimes for brands that is like, that's what they're marketing towards, but it's good to know that middle ground and know where you lie.
For sure. And I think one of the kinds of content that I remember was popular for a little bit was like, and we've actually made this like pretty currently, like a day in the life kind of video, right? Which was a reel that we made for a client of ours, where we just show kind of like it was staged, but behind the scenes of what it was like to be a client there, which was really exciting. But I've definitely seen it in an even more organic way where like someone will literally take the phone and walk around and like share a funny fact or like catch them in an awkward moment, like different people in the office. And I think that's like a really fun way of like really turning your company inside out, where people get to see like, who is it that's actually doing the work for me? Who am I working with? Who are the people executing on whatever it is? And like, do I like these people? And I think if you have likable people in your business and your competitor doesn't show anything and you have a fairly comparable product, people are going to go with the people, like you do business with people you know, like, and trust. So when you get to share a fun video, even if it's just silly and light and whatever else of like the different people in the office, like you get to develop that likability and, you know, get to know, someone gets to know you just a little bit better. And I think it's going to win.
Yeah, every time, definitely. I think one specific thing I can think of is Barstool. Like they're one of the biggest, like I would say, media outlets out there right now. And one thing they really do well is they tell a lot about like their workers, you know, like you don't realize how big of a role that they play. But I would say every other video, and not every other video, not that often, but they definitely show like what their office is like and like how messy it is, and it's authentic. They're just showing like who they are as people, which is hot slobs, and they're all like teenagers or like middle-aged guy. Like it's random, but it's on brand for them, you know. And it's showing them like who they are as people. And they I think almost all of them in that office have a podcast or have a social media platform where they share about themselves and the brand, right? So,
well, I think to your point, and we'll probably end with this. I think to your point, like that is like the idea of being selectively authentic. Like in their particular case, like I think them having like a messy, disorganized office is probably acceptable. It probably wouldn't be acceptable if we did that, right? Like, oh, and to be perfectly fair, well, there are parts of my office that are messy, but like to be perfectly fair, like, you know, that just doesn't go well. That doesn't look professional. It doesn't look like we have our
life together.
Our ducks in a row. And so like for us, or maybe for you, that would like not be great. But for a company like them, like, oh, like this is part of the personality and the vibe of the brand. And so it fits. It's not going to, cast a negative light onto their performance as people. And I think that's where it's like that selective authenticity where like maybe you don't show like your office in that specific manner because it is a hot mess, and so you can show off the personality of your brand and your people a different way.
Yeah.
Right? Like maybe after you clean up. I don't know. But just a thought.
Let's be honest. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, and I think so just like having that selective authenticity, which I don't know, to me, I mean, you might disagree, but that to me is authenticity where it's like what I'm going to share is the truth. But it doesn't mean I have to share 100% the truth about every single area of my life, because nobody does that. Nobody does that. So if nobody does that, that means you can do it and still be authentic.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine not to show us picking up your kids from school. That's okay.
Right. Unless, you've got a parenting brand.
Yeah.
Right? So how have you shown yourself authentic? Or do you disagree? Do you agree? Feel free to comment and share what your thoughts are on authenticity. And I'd love to hear how you've been able to share your story in an authentic way that has really invited people to be a part of your story and a part of your brand. Because it's powerful. And we definitely would love to hear and share those stories. So thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Death to Vanilla Podcast. We challenge you, be authentic.
Be authentic.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3.
I almost missed.
I was like,
Wanna cause no problems. I just wanna live my life, but I keep on hearing about nonsense. Me and my dons ain't mobsters, but you know when you see imposters. We know how to read them faces, same way you know how to read them comments. If you wanna talk, let's talk, but around here, make sure you're walking your talk is constant.